All right, let's get started. So again, hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for the webinar, How to Deliver Conversational Analytics Results in the First 90 Days. My name is Will Stagel, I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at CallMiner, and I'm joined today by Hope Rufrano, Brandon Montalvo, Kyle Carter, who are all going to join in on a discussion today about how organizations can ensure that they make quick progress towards their quality and efficiency goals when they're adopting conversation analytics platforms like CallMiner, and based on the experiences of Dunlop Sports and their approach and their outcomes. Before we dive in today, I do have a couple of housekeeping items I'd like to run through real quick. First, this is going to be a listen-only presentation with a live Q&A. So you're welcome and encouraged to ask any questions using the Q&A function that you see built into this platform. You'll see it there on the bottom right-hand side of your console, and we're going to address those at the end of the session during the Q&A section here. Second, if you happen to have any audio issues, please refresh your browser or close it entirely and rejoin the webinar to hopefully address those problems. Third, the link to a recording of this webinar is going to be sent to you within 48 hours using the email address that you gave us when you registered. So it'll take you back to this console where you'll be able to watch the webinar on demand or view any of the additional resources that we've linked for you on the right hand of the console. Lastly, if you want to book a call with a CallMiner expert or view a demo of our platform, you'll notice there's a book a meeting button or view demo button in the bottom left hand of your screen as well. Okay, so we've gotten all the housekeeping items out of the way here. Now, with that behind us, I'd like to officially introduce our speakers for today's webinar. First and foremost, Hope Rufrano, the Director of Customer Experience for Dunlop Sports. Hope, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Will. It's so good to be here. I appreciate CallMiner and Zenylitics inviting us to participate.
Well, we're glad to have you here. And I see that you brought with you Brandon Montalvo, who's your data analyst at Dunlop Sports. Brandon, thanks for joining us also.
Oh, thank you so much. Very excited.
Perfect. This also serves as our audio check, and you guys sound loud and clear, which is great. And then finally, last but not least, Kyle Carter, VP of Delivery and co-founder of Zenylitics, who helped you guys achieve the results that you got that we're talking about here today. Welcome, and thanks for joining us, Kyle.
Thanks for having me, Will.
Excellent. All right, well, let's move on and start talking about the experiences that Dunlop Sports had working with Zenylitics to put CallMiner in place and start to see some results. Hope, can you talk to us a little bit about Dunlop Sports and your background with the company and what brought you here today? Did we lose you, Hope? We can't hear you.
My apologies, everybody. First morning jitters, right?
Oh, that's okay. We can hear you now.
Got the jitters out of the way now. Who is Dunlop Sports? We are the North American subsidiary of Sumitomo Rubber Industries. We manufacture and sell premium golf and racket sports equipment to players of a variety of skill levels, right? Not everybody's a pro. And we have a portfolio of brands that include Dunlop, Srixon, Cleveland Golf, and Zexio. And we are also a licensed exclusive distributor of ASICS golf footwear. So I have been with the company for 11 years now, and very excited to talk to everybody today about what we have been able to achieve.
Excellent. So thanks for giving us a little bit of background and context there. Let's talk about the project that you guys engaged with Zenylitics on and how you got started. I know your project charter was kind of the cornerstone for this and how you framed the initiative.
My microphone keeps muting on its own here. So when we started looking at this, you know, our mission in CX is to be best in class, right? To deliver that best in class experience to customers with every transaction. And at the time, we were focused on channel expansion and we were focused on providing the human touch. But we really needed insight into customer engagement and the call drivers within those interactions in order to really move the dial forward and be best in class. We also wanted to connect to the employees' experience. You know, you can't take care of your customers unless your employees are in a great place. And we believed that the ability to provide our agents with focused feedback would ultimately increase their effectiveness and their efficiency. This would reduce our average handle times. We knew this would help us achieve first call resolution, and ultimately it would help us increase sales effectiveness overall. So when we looked at all of that, we recognized that we didn't have the technology to analyze calls, tickets, chats, and text interactions, right? Our omni-channel approach was there, but we couldn't gather what we needed out of that. And Zenylitics was the perfect partner for us. They provided us with a team as a service. They heard our needs, and they quickly developed an initial project charter, which you see on the screen in front of you as kind of a recap of that. That was really the starting point to us moving forward with CallMiner Analytics, which is what we needed. Kyle, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of speak a little bit more about a few of those things that you guys helped us with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, the project charter is really key to success of any program, right? When you're engaging with interaction analytics early on, there is a wealth of data that you've never had access to before. Hope mentioned the idea of call drivers. Anecdotally, you understand why people call you and what's really going on in your contact center. But once you roll out a tool like CallMiner, you're getting visibility to the raw numbers, the data around why people are calling you, and having something like a charter as your guiding principle, keeping guardrails on a program really keeps you focused on the key objectives, right? And that's one of the reasons I think Dunlop has been so successful is that with the engagement of Hope and Brandon, we were able to develop a charter that really aligned with their business initiatives. And Hope, I love your point about, the best in class experience. And you guys are really committed to that. And I think each of these charter objectives that we developed and agreed upon were, focused on that idea of how do we provide that not only for our customers, but also for, our staff. So I think, just the idea of the charter as a basis and a foundational step in the program is really important to call out.
Great.
I think we can jump.
Next slide. Did you guys want to talk then a little bit? I know you've got within that framework. Then you had some target goals around. You established some objectives, but then you focused on kind of those early results and what the low hanging fruit was in terms of what you could achieve.
It's true. Right away we had visibility to available information that was pretty valuable. One of the things that really stuck out about that was the category of silence. Silence on our interactions, particularly on phone calls, wasn't something we had really focused on before. And by having it brought to our attention and being able to see the context around that silence, right? When was that happening? Why was it happening? Once we knew that, we quickly identified that our agents didn't have quick access to information they needed. So there was more silence time because the agents were trying to find the information they needed. And so when we did that and learned that, we were able to give the agents fingertip access, if you will, to the information they needed. And it rapidly eliminated the silence. And we pretty quickly saw shortened call handle time and improved customer satisfaction as a result, because the customer's not sitting there waiting. Once silence was addressed, we saw an improvement on the scorecards, the information that we see and those reporting that we get. And our senior leadership was also really happy because they saw an immediacy of tangible positive results, and that reduction in call handle time is obviously cost savings. So there was a positive contribution to the ROI. For us, we have a lot of seasonal business. There's golf season, there's tennis season. And so it's important for us to be able to quickly address what we see as recurring customer inquiries. And the scorecards and the data analysis that we get now are and will help us achieve that in ways that we weren't able to do previously. So, it's just been a real benefit to us.
And it sounds like that translated then from reducing silence, improving the call handling times into overall improvements in customer experience.
Absolutely. You know, our customer satisfaction scores, we saw a slight bump in those. And I think if there's anybody else on the call today who's in customer experience, you know that large bumps in customer satisfaction are hard to achieve. So small wins add up over time, and we really started seeing that.
I think I think just to kind of jump onto that point, coming from silence, the idea of looking at silence as a metric that Dunlop hadn't been looking at before, the idea of rising tide lifts all ships. As we're working on that metric and seeing a improved performance there, we're not only becoming more efficient as an organization, right? We're able to have less hold time, have less dead air in calls, but we're also filling that with the behaviors that we know are going to provide that experience. And that's actually what we're looking at on this slide right now. This is, the overall score, one of the scores that we created for the Dunlop team around their QA assessment. And it's an aggregate of behaviors that are really core to how they want to interact with their customers. Be confident, build rapport, have a consistent type of engagement and interaction with their customers. We always, I've said this countless times with the Dunlop team, the idea of taking a call that could be transactional and turning it into an interaction. And the behaviors that they've woven into this scorecard really, ensure that their agents are putting their efforts in the right places. So while we see silence go down, we're seeing that gradual behavioral shift in our QA or our call flow score, where we're filling that time in that would have been silence in previous months. We're filling that in with building rapport with customers and engaging with them and making sure that we're solving whatever issue it is that they're bringing to us and making it a great experience along the way.
It is, Kyle, and to that point, I think customers really see that as being heard, right? Of having empathy with them, of connecting with them. And I think the relationships that you build with customers long term, that's what keeps the customers you have and starts the word of mouth that helps build your customer base as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it throws back to, and the slide we're looking at now is at Zenylitics, we have an idea of, iteration zero. There are certain things that we want to look at with every customer. And we just touched on a few of them, right? The idea of looking at handle time, looking at silence, not only just looking at the metric as a whole, but what's underneath it. What are the drivers? Until you have an interaction analytics piece of software like CallMiner in place, it's really hard to understand what's driving long calls, what's driving really low silence or really high silence. And CallMiner allows us to uncover that. And hope you touched on that before, just kind of understanding the seasonal shifts in your business and rolling out new products. What does that do to your business? And it allows you that level of visibility. So our idea around iteration zero, and many of these we touched on with the Dunlop team, were deep dives into duration, into silence, into the idea of first call resolution. Everybody wants to talk about FCR as a metric, but really, what does that mean? Looking into repeat calls, looking at the customer journey, putting multiple interactions into a string and seeing what the impacts are, what the underlying issues are. And then just looking at your call drivers. Mentioned earlier the idea of, we know why people call us or they initiate a chat with us, but now we can put value to that and we can look at impacts. So if someone calls me because they have an issue with a product or a shipment, I can start to understand what the impact to our business is. Does that make calls longer or shorter? Do we see higher dissatisfaction? And that really can be kind of our guiding light on where we spend our time. So iteration zero for us is a process that we go through with near every customer. These are all things that can help businesses, whether you're in the consumer product space, whether you're in sales, you're in financial services, wherever you are.
So you're enabling all those teams, you're setting up the right metrics, and then you're monitoring and promoting behaviors to improve that customer experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we traditionally see an increase in average handle time when we launch new products, which we have done this year. And that is because customers have more questions. They're looking at upgrading their equipment or replacing their equipment. And at the same time, our agents are accessing new product knowledge, right? So lots of questions from the customer, new information for the agent. So they're trying to get accustomed to that. So those average call times will get a little bit longer at that period of time. And that handle time is obviously a big part of our cost to serve, right? And so when we're able to utilize the data insights like we did with silence and gathering that information, to use that to be able to shorten our handle time and still deliver a quality experience to a customer that we're able to build a relationship with, that ends up giving us a win-win situation, which directly translates to customer satisfaction. From that, like, we're measuring that customer experience improvement as relates to those customer interactions, but at the same time, we need to measure our employees' experience as well, and be able to act on that knowledge. So we see satisfaction in the employees' perception of what their work life is like. And then long term, when we're looking at those results from a customer's experience and an employee's experience, we're anticipating that that's going to be reflected in increased sales, because we'll be able to share real customer feedback and real customer interactions and relationships with our sales and marketing teams.
Great. So we talked about, we framed this conversation around, initial successes in 90 days, but you can also kind of look at your longer term and broader trends as part of this in terms of CX and where you're heading and where you want to head.
Sure. So, our program really evolved, right? So in the beginning, you're just focused on launching, getting this new technology out, beginning to understand the technology, how it reacts with your systems, your incoming channel platforms. And so we initially launched only focused on phones, right, for about the first 6 months. And very early on, Brandon, our data analyst, jumped in to work side by side with Zenylitics to walk us through not necessarily just the launch, but also through a calibration phase. So when you look at the categories and components we were measuring, we needed time to calibrate that and make sure we captured it right with language and jargon that's specific to our industry. And through CallMiner, we have the ability to do that. So it's really calibrating and customizing the platform to our specific needs in golf and racket sports. As time went by, after we passed about that 6-month mark, we started adding channels one at a time. And now we have full omni-channel data that's going into our data analytics. And now we're starting to move into year 2, right? It seems like we just started doing this, but we're moving into year 2 because we added our channels thoughtfully over time, and calibrated to each of the channels, because obviously your interaction is different by phone than it is by email or text or ticket or chat. We're still, as a result of that, building our baseline of data. But we have published metrics and expectations to our agents. We have built those into their annual performance goals for 2023. And our achievements in this space are part of our overall team metrics that we report back to senior leadership on every week, every month. And so the progress from launching this new technology to now being able to have a standard by which we can analyze and view our channel transactions is just a huge benefit to the organization. I think that's a good transition to the next slide, actually.
Yeah, you talked about your program evolution.
Yeah, so
Here we go. Oh, it keeps skipping that one. Give me just a second. There we go.
I'm glad I'm not the only one having some tech issue running well. So obviously the data doesn't mean anything unless you have eyes on and you're consistently mining for information, right? So Brandon, who is our in-house expert on this, partnered with the Zenylitics team, and I think he had many conversations and lots of support and help from them, as really, I think in our eyes, the team at Zenylitics is just kind of an extension of our own team. At least Kyle and his team makes us feel that way. Brandon, I think you can share a little bit, if you will, about this initiative overall and the role you've had and kind of where we're going.
Yeah, so something that I really loved about working with Zenylitics and the CallMiner platform was that this is not like any traditional tool a traditional data analyst would use. So I had a very good understanding of what we were wanting to do with it and where we were wanting to go. And Kyle's team was amazing about getting me up to speed on how to use the tool and really showing me how powerful it is. Pairing with them, I was able to begin to uncover the easy wins for us that we could easily implement changes to really increase our customer experience and employee experience. Going forward, we're really looking into how can we gather customer insights and revenue opportunities, particularly within our B2B channels. And then this year, we're also really focusing on engaging with our team leaders in our frontline agents and participating in whiteboard meetings with them to continue to develop solutions and improvements based on all this information that we're able to gather.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. I appreciate you jumping in there. What CallMiner provides us through these analytics, I think has given us an overwhelming amount of information to start to dive into. And so we're just scratching the surface on that. And I know there's a lot of room for growth. And I know there's a lot of information there that's going to provide us with improvement. Kyle, you and I were talking about that a little bit earlier today. Can you share a little bit about what we talked about?
As far as what I'd like to touch on before we move further here is, we look at customers and the idea of like a high performing customer, and Dunlop fits that mold perfectly for us. Hope again to throw back to your idea of best in class experience. You guys truly commit to that. And the way that we see that in the interaction is that you're really bringing the human capital, the resources in to make this program work, right? You're not just expecting that you turn it on and it's just going to spit out results, right? There's a lot of hard work that went into this, and working, so closely with someone like Brandon, who understands the nuance of the Dunlop business and really what you're trying to achieve, and helping us get that calibrated, right? We're behind the scenes building all the content, building the models for you, but really having that engagement with your team that you've put in place to really get the value out of this, I think is why you've been so successful with it. That is so important. And not every one of our customers is able to do that, right? And the way that we look at it is what you stated before. Our team looks at, the engagement like we are an extension of your team. We fill in the roles that you don't have, right? And that's always how we've kind of envisioned ourselves is, maybe an organization doesn't have a rock star like Brandon to come in and do all that work and interpret the data. We can come in and help with that. But the fact that you've, devoted the resources to do that, I think is why you're seeing such a good result, and you have such a good road in front of you, right? We're talking about the idea of, where do we go with chat? How can we better, manage our tickets and understand what's coming in through those text channels, and really just have this high level, overall view of all of our communication channels. So I think as far as, the overall performance of the program really comes down to the commitment that your organization has made, from leadership on down through the entire organization, buying in, down to the agents who are in it day to day and are living with this as part of their day-to-day life.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think that may bring us to our Q&A section of the webinar. Any additional comments, I guess, from the team before we move forward and open up to questions?
No, let's hear what people want to know.
All right. Okay. Well, and interestingly too, we gave our audience the option to pose some of the questions before the presentation. So they came in with some areas of interest and questions for you guys right out of the gate. One of those was, how do you identify areas for improvement across your organization, as well as potential solutions? And this may go back to what you were saying, Kyle, about iteration 0.
Yeah, I'll take this one. The idea of uncovering the drivers behind outliers. We talked about those standard metrics in iteration 0. So looking at long calls, looking at process inefficiencies, looking at points that might cause friction on a customer experience side, looking at those outliers and using CallMiner to uncover what the drivers are. Is there an issue with a product? Is there an issue with a process? Using that really drives where we spend our time. Many of our customers come in and they think they have an idea of what they really want to achieve, and generally they're pretty close. But we'll find things that they may not have even known existed, or opportunities in contact centers, or maybe in their network of BPOs that we can focus on. And it's all based on the data that comes out of that iteration 0 play, right? Let's look at silence. Let's look at duration and what presents itself to us. And that's really where we'll start. And that really gets us value early. Those are metrics that we can get to very early on in a program and start to see great results. And many of our customers are able to, achieve ROI for the full program just focusing in those areas. Everything else becomes, an add-on. It's gravy after that. You're really able to drive that ROI just by looking in those areas and focusing there.
We have sort of a follow-up question to that, which is what is also out of scope for something like an iteration 0? Meaning, are there things that are either too big or too small to make part of that iteration?
That's a good question, and really the idea is to hit those iteration 0 topics quickly. So you do have to be really cautious about your prioritization, right? Does what we find fit within our original charter? Does it fit the goals that we've set? So it really comes down to having a clear idea of what your priority is and having conversations about it. We always have conversations with our customers about prioritization. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much we can achieve collectively, right? There's only so much a customer can execute on. So having that conversation and being very clear about what is it that we can achieve within the time that we have, I think is really, really important to help you trim that down. And there's always bring the business back in and ask those questions to say, is this really as important as we think it is? Is handle time something we care about? Maybe CX or maybe our NPS score is the metric that we really want to move, and handle time isn't where we should be spending our time. So asking those questions and being very clear about what the goals are, I think will help you really sight in on what is in scope and what's out of scope.
Okay, great, thanks. Another question: what's been the agent's response to Zenylitics and CallMiner to that solution, and what's been implemented so far?
Well, if I'm being honest with you, they were all a little hesitant at first. I think anytime you tell someone that we are recording and analyzing all of your transactions, there's a little nervousness that goes with that. And there were some things we needed to do from a human resources perspective and a legal perspective, because we were beginning to record phone calls, right? And that poses a different perspective. The agents followed along with it, obviously agreed to it, and it was important that we level set the expectations, right? That we were utilizing the information from our agents for quality and training purposes, and reminding them that the categories and conditions that we were looking at and analyzing were things that had all been covered in the soft skill training that they all go through. So all of our new agents go through soft skills training, and then a couple times a year we do refresher courses on soft skills as well. And so when the agents realized that the intent of it was to improve the customer's experience and to provide them with better resources and understand their experiences, they've moved forward to now they provide feedback and suggestions. And so we've actively had some of our agents working with Brandon through calibration processes of the channels we added after phones. And so it's really been nice to see our agents embrace it and be able to see that it supports them, right? And supports sometimes difficult transactions they have with customers when they reach out and say, hey, can you take a look at this? Can you listen to this? Can you look at the analysis of this and tell me how I could be better? So it's been an evolution for sure. It did not start out quite simple, but it's in a really good place now. And it's nice to see the agents engaging in the process.
That's great. Sort of a follow-on question that we got, which is along the same lines, what's been the organizational response to the program? So beyond the agents, what kind of feedback and response have you gotten internally?
The response has been positive from senior leadership, but I will tell you that I think we're just scratching the surface.
Hmm.
We really need a full year of data is that baseline I was talking about earlier. I'm looking to create that baseline of data for all channels for a full year, which we should have for the year of 2023, and more analysis by Brandon, obviously, in that space, but to ultimately start to tell stories about our customers, to give real life examples of groups of customers, right? How we can define things that are specific to customers interested in certain brands or certain products. I think there's a lot of stuff we're going to glean out of that, but right now we're just scratching the surface. So we haven't gotten full excitement yet, but I see it coming.
Interesting. So we're getting some questions with some kind of patterns here. But since you said you were scratching the surface, I'm going to jump to a question that was posed to you, Hope, which was, what are the next big focuses now that you've got some good footing? So what are those kind of, now that you scratched the surfaces, what do you envision next?
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's a good question. I think you're, as a leader, you're always thinking forward, where will we be in 2, 3, 5 years, right? And with the technology that we have in place, with the information that we're now able to glean out of that, we're looking at ways to elevate our entire agent workforce, right? As one thing. So when we look at the employees' experience, it's how do we elevate them to the next place of really being able to quickly and effectively and with strong quality deliver that best in class experience to customers. So on the one hand, we're looking at focusing on the agents themselves. Beyond that is kind of what I was saying a few minutes ago from the organizational response, right? How do we take brand specific information, product specific information, and be able to work in tandem with our sales and marketing teams for future considerations of promotions or programs or things that we're doing to further build our brands in the marketplace and really look at market share, right? Because I think that the information we have, being on the front lines every day and having agents that are right there speaking to consumers, speaking to our dealers, working directly with our sales reps, there's a lot of information to be pulled out of that we hope will contribute to go forward to contributing to sales.
That's great. I'm going to shift gears here with some of the other questions we have coming in. One questioner, one attendee asked, great progress at Dunlop Sports, so congratulations. Want to share the kudos with you. Then the question was, how does what you're doing today support or work with I'm kind of paraphrasing, work with automation, either CCAS solutions or virtual agents. So are there any of this so far, I guess, if I would interpret the question, that plays into where you may look for opportunities for automation, or where this dovetails maybe with ways to offload some work from your agents?
Yeah, I think so. I'm kind of hearing that in two parts. So we do have AI, we do have a virtual agent. And so we have utilized some of this information already, kind of that low-hanging fruit, if you will, to be able to develop flows with our virtual agent to handle some things that we see that come in frequently. For instance, hole-in-one is a great day in the life of a golfer. And we get a lot of communication from consumers about making that happen, right? That it's, hey, I got a hole-in-one last weekend. What do you guys do? And we do have a recognition program for that. But we've been able to take some of the feedback we've gotten on those people that are calling about their hole-in-ones. We've built out flows for our virtual agent who can go in for the people who reach out on our website to be able to handle those on a very quickly resolved basis, right? A first contact resolution, to be able to move forward and get that recognition sent out to those folks. So we are able to do that, and it has helped us to develop some of those flows. And then, of course, we, as the virtual agent in the system for us appears like any other agent, right? That we could gather information from that. In terms of the technical side of that, I think Kyle's probably more of an expert than I am, but I'm not sure if the question was related to technical or if I covered what you were looking for. Hopefully so.
I'm not sure, but did you have anything to add there, Kyle?
I think Hope nailed it, but no, I do have a little bit to add. The idea of using CallMiner to understand some of the reasons why people are calling in, and then using that to build out different tracks within your virtual agent is really where we see the first steps for an omni-channel customer, right? How can I just use this to deflect some calls and do that effectively? One of the other things that we actually see is, like Hope, you just said, perfect segue to the point that I wanted to make. That virtual agent shows up in the data just like any other agent. I remember, Brandon, when we first looked at it, I said, man, this guy really takes a lot of chats. It was your virtual agent. But the idea is we can also see how your customers respond to your virtual agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
That track that now we've created, does that cause friction? Does it cause customers, just typing in representative? Mm-hmm. Are they trying to get out of there, or are they going through that path to completion? So it's not only does it help us create the track, it helps us measure the effectiveness of it as well. So I think that's kind of the step two, and as we move forward with Omni, I'm excited to really see where we go with that.
Yeah, Brandon was recently reviewing some data, and he shared with me that one of our sales reps had commented back to our virtual agent and saying, "Wow, you guys are working really late on a Saturday." So
that's high praise if they can't even tell it's a virtual agent.
Right.
That's great. So we've had a couple questions that came in related to silence as an indicator, as a metric. First one was pretty straightforward. You mentioned silence as a metric. Why did you choose silence?
Well, I think silence chose us. I clearly don't have a silence issue, as you've seen today, but silence was by far the category that struck us with the lowest scores, and gave us an opportunity for immediate improvements and wins in that space. And so knowing that silence was there, the longer that silence was present, the customer was not connecting with us, right? They were not connecting with an agent. The agent was not connecting with them. And so addressing that and minimizing that was really positive in terms of our customers' perception of how we were, working with them, how we were interacting with them overall.
So we had a follow-up question related to that, which was, in addition to observing behaviors around silence events, what other resources did you reference when determining desired behaviors?
So
great question.
I'll take this.
Yeah. That's a
great
great question.
Hope, no, all you.
Kyle. No, you. Go ahead, Kyle.
Okay. All right. I'll take it. So it's not necessarily just the behaviors around silence. It's not necessarily just the in proximity to the silence, right? So we look at all of the behaviors, drivers and other topics being really important on the calls. Think about, if you're applying this within your own organization, think about processes. Maybe customers are talking about warranty. Maybe they're talking about returns or shipping labels. All think about processes that might cause an agent to pause, or an FAQ that needs to be pulled up to look at, an agent to look at. Those are some of the approaches that we'll take. Beyond that, I know, Brandon, when we were looking at silence, and to be honest, a lot of your other metrics, you were taking data out and putting that alongside data out of your CRM. So I'm assuming product and other metrics we may not have visibility to in CallMiner. Do you have any points you might want to add on that?
Yeah. So, when I was looking at the flow of a conversation, I was really trying to figure out, why are our guys stopping? Like, what is it? And we really found that it just took our agents a long time to find things within the CRM. So something that was huge for us is, this tangible silence category allowed us to change and upgrade a product within the process that made things significantly faster for our team. So not only did it kind of highlight where our weak points were that we didn't know, but it allowed us now to come at it with a let's up this. And instantly our agents were able to answer much faster, find the resources much faster. And it just made everything more efficient overall there.
Yeah, and I think I would jump into that and say, that knowledge base of information that agents have, sometimes it was something as simple as tagging it differently, right? So when they entered a tag to search by, sometimes the agents are looking for things differently than the person who set up the knowledge article. And so that silence, made us look at it and say, this is easy information. It's right there in front of them. Why are they having such a hard time? And they were looking under different tags than the way we had it set up. And so that ability to see that, I think, showed us as well, engaging our agents in the calibration process, like what works, how they look for things, how they search for information, became really important. I think in that question as well, Will, you were saying that the person asked about what other resources we referenced when we were determining desired behaviors. Right. Yeah, so we conduct soft skills training with our teams, and we really looked to that because those soft skills kind of build into categories of what we expect our agents to deliver when they're interacting with our customers. And so that entire group of soft skills knowledge was a part of that. And then also basing it on, expectations that we receive back from not only our sales and marketing folks, but also operations, shipping, engaging credit and accounting, all of the teams that a CX department deals with. Getting information from them on things that were important helped as well, because our customer base is not just consumers or dealers that purchase our products. It's also our field sales team, and then all of our internal partners or customers as well. So we had to look at it not just from an external customer perspective, but also from an internal customer perspective and what they were looking for. And in some of those cases, one of the feedback I got was, your agents respond, you guys just respond too quickly. You're not very friendly. And when our agents are working with our sales reps, they know that they're in their cars, facing windshield time, trying to get 1,000 things done. So our agents were looking at it from the perspective of, I just want to give you the answer and not take a lot of time because you're probably looking at this on your cell phone. Mm-hmm. But the field sales was like, no, we kind of want the personal, how you doing too, right?
Because they're salespeople, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we've gotten through all of the questions that came up during the Q&A session right now. Thank you so much, everybody. Hope, Brandon, and Kyle, for all your insights and sharing all your experiences today. I think everybody who watched the webinar today is going to walk away with some new knowledge and insights that hopefully they can put into practice. Before we go, though, just a few important reminders for everyone who's here. First and foremost, be on the lookout for an email from us that's going to include a link to today's recording. If you want to revisit any of this on demand or share it with your peers, you'll have access to that. That'll bring you back to this console where you'll be able to find additional resources. You'll have links to view a demo of CallMiner or request a meeting with one of our experts to actually see what the solution looks like in more detail. Second, if you're interested, you can access more resources like case studies, similar to kind of what we talked about today, recordings of other webinars in the Learning Center at learning.callminer.com. And then finally, if you enjoyed what you saw here today, you may be interested in our next upcoming webinar, How Answers to These Customer Conversations Make a Difference. That one's going to be held on April 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 Pacific. And you can register for that webinar by visiting our website, again, at callminer.com/events. Or you can see there's a little green square with the clicking finger on the toolbar there at the bottom of the screen on this slide. On behalf of everybody who hosted and presented today, I want to thank you once more for taking the time to attend today's webinar. We hope you found this information valuable, and we really look forward to seeing you on a future event as well. Take care, everyone, and have a great day.